years with the OLA's office, and as far as we know, no one has faced consequences for that. We'll also be focusing on making Minnesota affordable, and to make Minnesota affordable, we're introducing bills to bring down healthcare costs by establishing a permanent reinsurance program and requiring cost defrayal for any new healthcare mandates. We have a bill to establish a commission to tell us why property tax increases are continuing to happen, and we want to conform with federal policy to cut taxes on tips, and overtime so Minnesotans can keep more of their hard-earned money. Minnesotans have had a hard couple of years with Democrats spending an entire $18 billion surplus and raising taxes by another $10 billion, still driving us into a deficit. House Republicans are here to reverse that damage to family budgets. Additionally, we're going to focus on making Minnesota safe. To make Minnesota safe, we have bills to hold criminals accountable by requiring repeat offenders to serve their sentences, and a bill to increase sentences for repeat gun criminals. We're also working on a bill for judicial accountability and transparency. We've had a troubling run of judges allowing violent criminals out to reoffend without more than a slap on the wrist. That needs to stop, and Republicans are going to work on that to prevent Minnesotans from continuing to suffer because of that judicial activism. We also have a school safety bill that we're working on that will include public schools and safe schools revenue, non-public schools and safe school revenue, expand flexibility on funding for school safety personnel, and give one-time grants for facility improvements. Our students, teachers, and school staff deserve a safe learning environment, and our school safety plan will give concrete steps to make that happen.
The next area is specifically in education, where we talk about raising standards and reducing mandates. So in education, we plan to pass a bill so that Minnesota students can fully benefit from new federal education choice tax credits. Fewer than half of our students in the state of Minnesota can read at grade level. That is unacceptable. Our graduation rates are abysmal. So parents should be able to choose the best school for their students without being penalized at tax time. We also need to make sure that our reading, science, and math curriculum are effective. It's really time in Minnesota to return to basic academic fundamentals. Schools need to be teaching our students how to think, not what to think. The next area is we're going to make Minnesota competitive. House Republicans want to protect and expand Minnesota's mining industry by implementing permitting reform and other changes to support the industry. We want to conform our tax code to support Minnesota's job creators, and conforming to federal research and development credits, business expensing modifications, and other changes that allow businesses and employees to thrive in Minnesota are some of the things that you're going to see. Finally, ending that nuclear moratorium will make our energy more affordable and make Minnesota more attractive to businesses that want to make Minnesota their home. The last specific area that we want to talk to you about this afternoon is Minnesota tax dollars for Minnesotans. We have bills that will ensure that Minnesota tax dollars will benefit Minnesotans, like modifying the North Star Promise program so that only legal Minnesotans are eligible, and conforming to federal law with regards to work requirements and more frequent eligibility checks for Medicaid. It makes sense to require that those on public programs who are able to work do that, and those who are receiving tax dollars are actually eligible. That's an overarching look at the program that we have, a continuation from last year, and with that, we will stand for questions.
You may have heard Democrats this morning at their press conference that one issue was addressed. It was immigration action. You haven't talked about immigration. Talk to us, because there is impact statewide economically. The governor has talked about an economic package. I've heard from Republican business owners who have been interested in maybe a tax holiday. Is there any bipartisan legislation that you could see support?
So again, with the businesses that have been impacted over the last 6 weeks or so, if you remember back in January, you had leaders, city and state leaders, calling on businesses to shut down for a day and to strike. That is a choice. Not all businesses chose to do that. Not all businesses were negatively impacted, but it was a choice that was made. If the governor and other legislators are going to bring bills forward, of course, those bills are going to be introduced, referred to committee, and heard in the committees. Right now, as Republicans, we are talking overarching, as you saw on this plan here, ways that are going to make things more affordable for all Minnesotans across the board. And so those are the areas that we're focusing on.
Madam Speaker, does it go without saying there will be no tax increases given how difficult it is to keep track of the tax dollars that are coming in now?
You know, we have been overtaxed. As you have heard just a little while ago from Leader Niska, as we have been talking about, we had an $18 billion surplus in 2023 that was completely spent, and all of our taxes and fees were raised another $10 billion. We're headed toward a deficit, and that was a Democrat-created deficit back in 23 and 24. We are trying to dig our way out of it, but tax increases on Minnesotans are off the table.
Governor's last session, what do you?
You know, I think the governor has mentioned some of the economic losses that, you know, his perspective and what he wants to do. But to be honest with you, I have not heard or talked to the governor since September 30th. I'm not sure.
Speaker, are you going to see if there's some kind of a bailout package for businesses? Are you going to see it as statewide, Republican districts, Democratic districts, or is it going to be seen as a bailout for Minneapolis?
Don't take.
Well, I think what we should be focused on, what we've talked about, is making Minnesota competitive. We've seen a lot of damage to businesses as a result of the Governor Walz's policies and Democrat policies over the last several years. It's interesting that, again, we're seeing a continuation of what really we saw last year, a Trump deflection strategy, trying to blame President Trump for all the bad effects of Democrat policies. Democrat policies have made it really hard for businesses to compete in the state, and we should be focused on trying to fix that, make Minnesota competitive going forward. But the idea that we're going to do some sort of bailout instead of trying to figure out how to fix our business environment, I don't think that's something that there's going to be bipartisan support for.
Representative Reinhardt, you had a bill last session about requiring local governments to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. It didn't make it out of committee. Democrats were not amenable to it, but I'm wondering would you make changes that you think that they might agree to and try to bring that idea back?
Yeah, before he said, I just want to add that we offered that as an amendment on the House floor, and Democrats blocked it on a party line vote. So it was not just blocked in committee, it was blocked by Democrats on the floor. It would have created a framework for cooperation that would have prevented a lot of the problems that we've seen in Minnesota over the last several weeks. And Democrats prevented it from happening, but certainly